Man, I broke up with my girlfriend. I don't know how to feel. On the one hand, you know, I really enjoyed being with her, but I guess I never really felt like could be myself. And I didn't really feel free to do all of the things that I wanted to do. In fact, like, I'm starting my own business now. I'm like out here working my butt off. And it's like, but I know that I never could have done that when I was with her. And I don't want to say that she kept me down or anything like that. But something that I learned from her is that, like, love takes sacrifice, and it's worth it to sacrifice because love is important, you know? But maybe there are some things that you shouldn't sacrifice. And if you are sacrificing them, then maybe it's not for the best. Maybe there's some things that you need to hold on to, like your own growth as a human. You can't sacrifice that, surely, you know? I felt like I was a little bit more intellectual. I was a little bit more into the books. I was a little bit more into, all that kind of stuff. And she was a very loving person, and she always was taking care of kids, and she was very, very loving, and her, like, one of her love languages was acts of service, and she taught me that, and that's priceless. It's so much more important than any of the shit that I was doing. And I just realized that what I thought was important wasn't really as important, The thing that's really important was love, and so I was willing to sacrifice my need for creative and intellectual pursuits, If I was willing to experiment with it, but also secretly I wanted us both to grow, and I wanted her to grow in my direction. I wanted her to grow with me. It's like when two souls are bonded and they are connected on a very deep level, and the souls are connected, but then the personal identities are not as connected. We had very different backgrounds. We had very different upbringings. And, we just had different lives. And we had different directions. We had different priorities. We've kind of valued different things. And she valued, I think, just kind of making a good life for herself and her family, and that's great. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's perfect. That's beautiful. That's what that should be the highest priority. But I've always been someone with these big dreams, I guess, and big things that I want to achieve. And I don't know, maybe I even felt bad for having that. But I feel like I made my deal with God, and I just said, all right, like, I'm going to do this, and you don't back out of a deal, but, it's sad to be alone. It's hard to be alone, And she saved me from that a lot. She saved me from being alone, It's fine. It is what it is. It's the path that some of us walk, and, sometimes we're forged by the wilderness. Sometimes we're forged by the loneliness, and we're forged and kind of like, what's the word, blacksmith, like welded, like we're like hammered and like welded into a new version of ourselves, into a new path. And that's what I feel like. I'm being kind of welded into a new path, because I'm like, what are my options? I could keep applying to these jobs that suck. All of my peers are like, because of their connections and their perfect paths, they landed all these jobs that now I'm trying to apply for with no degree and no connections. And or I could, keep applying to shitty jobs that I hate when I know that I want to be doing something greater and I've already had a taste of that. And so it's like, what do? Well, I fucking do it myself. I use the sales experience that I've gotten, the marketing experience, which taught me how to be an entrepreneur, and I go out there and I make my own fucking business. But I wouldn't have gotten to that point if I hadn't gone through this isolation and this loneliness and this kind of hardening and being like, well, there's only really one way to go, And I wouldn't have met her if it wasn't for that, because she opened me up to whole new worlds, whole new dimensions of what it means to be, like, I guess, the highest version of yourself. Because before her, my culture was very much, it was just all about achievement, all about who was the smartest person, who was the most successful. And it wasn't until I met her that I realized that love is the most important thing. Loving people in your life, that's the most important thing. And if I hadn't been through this sort of, I feel like I tailspinned, like I was like on takeoff, I was in the flight with the other fleets, the whole other fleet in the sky, but there was something rattling in my engine tank from the liftoff. I just ignored it, and I ended up doing a tailspin, crash landing, and if it weren't for that happening, then I wouldn't have been the fully fledged, independent person that I am, that's going to grab life by the fucking horns and but also someone who understands what it means to be a real person. And all the other people I came up with, they have their own paths, and I don't know what they're going through. But I don't know, man. I just look around and there's a lot of people that don't know what pain is. Or, I don't want to sound like, I'm not gatekeeping, but it's like they've never had their heart like smashed into pieces, and you can tell, everything was just easy, and they've never had to venture outside of their known world. And they grow up just on the track, like they're on a ride at Disneyland, like Autopia. Remember Autopia? That's for the old heads out there. You drove a car. That was the ride. I guess they took it out because driving a car sucks. It's not a fun experience. Maybe it was back in the 50s or whatever, when they had horse drawn carriages, the Ford V8, But what was I saying? Yeah, so they're on this Autopia course, this track, And, whatchamacallit? They just end up in the prescribed place for them. They end up like their parents, And they never venture out into the unknown world, which is the hero's journey, venturing out from the known into the unknown. It's what does that really mean? It's like experiencing a different world that maybe you didn't even know existed, or maybe you've only heard references to it. But there's so many different worlds out there. I live in Los Angeles, and I've grew up here. I was born here, but there's two worlds here. There's the world of Beverly Hills and Santa Monica and, Sherman Oaks, Silver Lake to an extent. And then there's the world of Compton, there's the world of El Monte, there's the world of, of Chatsworth and Northridge, but to really venture into an unknown world, into a new world, it's really like, it really changes you. And it's really like, oh my God, like, this is more than anything I could have ever expected out of my life, It's beautiful. So I wouldn't give that up for the world, and I never would have had that if I didn't tailspin. So, it's all for a reason. Well, maybe I've talked long enough here. I think that's probably a long enough video, and I think that might be an end to it. So I'm happy with this video. Thanks for watching.